Did you let yourself go this football season? Is your tight end not living up to expectations? Here at the Fantasy Headliners Gym, we're going to get your tight end back into shape. Let's go. Headliner Nation, what's going on? Kyle coming to you from the Draft.com studios with another episode of the Fantasy Headliners, talking about tight ends for week 5 of the season. Who are we going to start? Who are we going to sit? And just to follow up on that infomercial start to this episode, no, we don't have any workout DVDs coming out. Maybe in the near future. Who knows? I'll talk to Jake and see what we can round up. I don't know if any of you out there want to watch Jake and I work out for an hour, though. Nope, not interested. Anyway, as we do on every start and sit episode, complete transparency with you regarding the week before. And we did get back to that 60% number that I said that we needed to be at. We're right there on it. There was a lot of craziness this past week. Studs that we thought would hit, didn't hit. I mean, right there, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram, 2 top options right there that were misses that looked like for sure to have good matchups, and it didn't end up coming through, but that's all right. Going to continue to work our way back up even higher than the 60% we were at last week. Now, my Fantasy Pros rankings for week 4 have not come in as of yet. Prior to week 4, I was ranked 5 out of about 150 or so expert rankers over on Fantasy Pros. They haven't come in yet this week, so I don't know where I currently stand, but I'll put something out soon to let you know how I did last week. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get rolling into the episode and talk about what tight ends we're going to be playing this week in week 5. All right, we're going to head out to Seattle for the first game of the week on Thursday night. The LA Rams trying to bounce back from an awful performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. They head out to Seattle to try and get a little bit of revenge after last week against the Seattle Seahawks. Will Dissly, he's a guy that we're starting for sure. He's currently the tight end 5. He's been playing very, very well. He had a really good matchup last week. Didn't end up finishing nearly as high as I thought he would, but still found the end zone. Still had a really good day. He has at least 50 receiving yards and a touchdown the last 3 weeks. He's becoming a very steady option for Russell Wilson. We're going to continue to run him out there now. He is a must start, a perma start moving forward until we see anything happen otherwise to take us from that frame of mind. Now, for the Los Angeles Rams, I really want to start Gerald Everett. I mean, I'd love to get him in there. I think he's a really good football player. Him and Higbee both are good football players. I think Everett, if he was in a different situation, if he was in an offense that didn't have nearly as many weapons around him, and he was in an offense that utilized the tight end a little bit more, this is a guy that could be a tight end 1. He has that kind of skill set, but it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick. These guys are basically identical in statistics. They have the same amount of targets. Everett only has 1 more reception. He only has a few more receiving yards. They both have 1 touchdown. With that being said, though, when you have Robert Woods, when you have Brandon Cooks, when you have Cooper Kupp, when you have Todd Gurley, when you have all of these weapons around you, it's really hard to break out and be a consistent option every single week. So as much as I would like to start one of these guys, I really couldn't do it unless I was absolutely 100% just had no other options to go. So if that's you this week, then maybe you could take a look at them, but they're going to be sits for me because I think it's going to be hard to get to that double-digit range, those 10 points that they would need to be a start. Arizona's going to get a chance to go against another undefeated team, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are coming off an awful performance at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football. Are they going to get a win this week? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Tyler Eifert is going to be a start for me this week. He has 9 more targets than CJ Who's Your Mama. And at this point, he has a much better touchdown upside every single week. Again, the Arizona Cardinals are giving up over 28 points per game to opposing tight ends. I think when you have a team that's that bad against a specific position, you have to look at them as a flyer every single week, a guy that you could potentially stream. So, because Eifert's a touchdown upside, he's been looked at a little bit more by Andy Dalton. I think this could be his week over Uzomah because I think he has definitely a better chance to find the end zone. Also keep in mind, John Ross, he's going to be out, it looks like, for at least a month. That's what we're hearing right now. But it looks like Auden Tate also is getting a little bit, getting some more reps and getting some more work. So we'll see what happens, but Eifert will be a start for me. CJ, who's your mama? Not going to be a guy that I'm going to put in my lineup this week. I don't think that he has nearly the upside that Eifert does. And with Charles Clay, the guy has 6 targets on the season. Definitely not interested in putting him in an offense that doesn't even really utilize the tight end position and a quarterback that doesn't even look his way. Hey, we're going to head out to Tennessee for this next matchup. Buffalo looking to get back on track after a disappointing loss at home to the New England Patriots. Dawson Knox moving forward for me is going to be a start. This is a guy that we need to start getting in our lineup a little bit more often. Over the last 2 weeks, 125 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, so he's being relied upon a little bit more. But not only that, Tennessee is giving up 15.73 points per game to opposing tight ends right now. Now, the guy on the right-hand side, maybe a name that you're surprised to see, Delaney Walker. I am not going to start him this week. Now, let me put a little bit of a star next to it here, and just a side note. If you don't have a streaming option that has a higher floor, then don't sit Delaney Walker just because of that. If you can find a streaming option like a Tyler Eifert this week, I would go that route over Delaney Walker. This is going to be a really tough matchup for him and for Tennessee. Buffalo right now is only giving up 4.85 points per game to opposing tight ends, and Delaney Walker hasn't found the end zone since week 1. So because of that, again, there just isn't a high ceiling with Walker this week. Sure, he could get 2 or 3 receptions for maybe 30 or 40 yards, but that's not going to do you a whole lot of good. I would rather gamble it and put a guy like Tyler Eifert in my lineup, who I say, okay, this guy has really high touchdown potential. And really, honestly, is there a big difference between 6, 7 points and no points if Eifert were to put up a 0? Obviously, yes, it could cost you a matchup. But again, we're looking for the most upside possible in our lineups every week. Delaney Walker just doesn't have it, so I would be looking to stream for him this week. Chicago's going to be heading to Oakland with a backup quarterback in Chase Daniels. But both of these tight ends are going to be a start for me in this matchup. Darren Waller leads his team in targets. The next closest person is 13 targets away from him. So he is a guy that you're going to continue to start on a weekly basis just because of volume upside. I mean, the guy's been a top 10 tight end all year long, and he hasn't even found the end zone yet. Wait till he starts scoring a little bit. Now for Trey Burton. I'm going to get sucked in again. This is a guy that I've talked about streaming a few times this season so far. 2 or 3 times, maybe not a few. But I've talked about him a couple times as a streaming option, and I'm going to go back to that against Oakland, who's giving up 15.8 points per game to opposing tight ends. That is 5th most in the fantasy football season. Their backup quarterback is going to be playing. Chase Daniels is going to be out there. Now, he didn't look that bad last week when he came in and had to face Minnesota and played a majority of the game. Could he rely on Trey Burton a little bit more now that he's going to be in there for a full game? Do the Raiders really try to shut down those wide receivers and make Chase Daniels dump it off a little bit more? If they do, then Trey Burton could benefit from that and see several targets this game. And if he can get himself 6 or 7 targets and enough catches, this is definitely a decent streaming option this week for you. Headliner Nation, I lied to you, Headliner Nation. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to give Jared Cook another shot here. Yes, I know I told you last week that was going to be my last shot. He didn't perform, but lo and behold, I'm going to get sucked in again. And if I'm wrong again, I'm wrong again. But the matchup is just too good for me to leave Jared Cook just sitting on the bench or the waiver wire. This week, he gets the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are giving up 19.03 points to opposing tight ends right now, 2nd most in the National Football League. So they are giving up more than enough points to tight ends. Okay, maybe this is the last week. We'll wait and see what happens. But the matchup is just too good for me to list him as a start or a sit again this week. I've been starting him so far this season. This will be the last chance. Now, for O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. Let me break this down a little bit here for you. So, right now, O.J. Howard is in on 57.7% of snaps. Cameron Brate is in on 27% of snaps. O.J. Howard only has 2 more targets than Brate this season. He's just not being looked at as of yet. Yes, the last 2 games have been better, but Cameron Brate found the end zone last week. That's a tough pill to swallow for O.J. Howard owners. And I was a big O.J. Howard enthusiast at the beginning of the season and during the offseason, and I will admit that that probably was not a great call at this point in time. We'll see what happens, but both of those guys we have to sit. Now, this is the first time I've mentioned Cameron Brate on a show this year, but I think we need to take notice that he found the end zone and he's starting to creep up on targets with OJ Howard. I don't know what next week is going to bring, but because of that, we're not going to start either of them, and we'll just have to continue to monitor the situation moving forward. Minnesota at the New York Giants is going to be a pretty quick breakdown here. Number one, Evan Ingram, even though he only put up like 7.4 points last week, he's still the tight end one. He's a lock and loaded start every single week. It doesn't matter who he's facing. You're going to put him in the lineup every week. Now for my breakdown of Kyle Rudolph. You can barely start Adam Thielen. You can barely start Stephon Diggs, if start him at all. So why in the world would you start Kyle Rudolph? Leave him on the bench, drop him. It doesn't matter. We're not interested. In this matchup between the Jets and the Eagles, Zach Ertz is going to be a start for us. Now, the Jets have only given up 4.37 points per game to opposing tight ends, but they haven't really played any tight ends yet. So that number might be a little misleading right now. So we're still going to continue to throw Zach Ertz out there. Played a good defense in Green Bay last week and still came away with a really good game. So same thing could happen this week. We're not sitting him anytime soon. Continue to start Zach Ertz. Now, with Dallas Goedert, that is a guy that we are not starting right now. Only 7 targets so far this season. Yes, he does have a touchdown, and he basically dropped a wide open touchdown against the Lions a couple of weeks ago, but he's just not seeing any volume right now. And he's dealt with a little bit of an injury. Maybe they're just not using him. I don't know what's going on with him for right now. More than likely he's on your waiver wire anyway, but for those of you in deeper leagues that may have stashed him at the beginning of the year, go ahead and continue to leave him on your bench for right now. Now, with Ryan Griffin, this is going to be the last week for him because Chris Herndon will come back after his suspension ends this week. So this will probably be the last time we talk about Ryan Griffin this season, which is fine because we really haven't talked about him anyway. Only 6 targets at 15 yards on the year. He's averaging 3.8 yards per reception right now. He's a non-factor. He's on the waivers. It doesn't matter. We're not interested in him this week, even as a streaming option. The offense that we saw from the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night was probably one that you didn't really expect. I know I didn't expect to see it, but we could be looking at a little bit of a different offense in Pittsburgh now, but I like it. It was fun. It was exciting. It was against the Bengals. We'll see what happens this week against the Baltimore Ravens. However, Nick Vannett, still very new to the system. They mentioned it on Monday Night Football a couple of times. He had said during the week it was like a college student trying to cram for a final exam at the last minute. He was trying to learn the playbook and get caught up. He did see a couple of targets. However, he's not going to be a guy that I'm going to look to start right away because, again, I don't know if that position is really going to be utilized moving forward. It's really going to be focused on the running backs and then some of your bigger plays to stretch the field. Mark Andrews, he's Lamar Jackson's favorite target. Even though he was banged up a couple of weeks ago and heading into week 4, he still looked good. Scored a touchdown last week. Continue to throw him out there at ease. I saw a lot of comments on my waiver wire video letting me know that I had forgotten Ben Watson, but I'm here to let you know I didn't forget Ben Watson because I'm not targeting Ben Watson. Now, it's easy to look at the New England Patriots and say, well, in the past, the Patriots offense, yeah, but in the past, the Patriots offense had Rob Gronkowski. Ben Watson and Rob Gronkowski are not the same person. They have plenty of weapons right now in New England. Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett has even looked really good this year, and of course, James White. The tight end position in New England so far this year only has 4 receptions. Yeah, Ben Watson's going to be coming off a 4-game suspension. He gets to run back out there this week. I'll keep an eye on the situation, but as of right now, I'm not interested in trying to stream Ben Watson at all. Now, on the flip side for Vernon Davis, I continue to put him as a start, and I don't know why. I'm not doing it anymore. They're not targeting him. Now it looks like Dwayne Haskins could potentially be the quarterback moving forward, unless they go ahead and throw Case Keenum back out there. We'll see what happens with that situation. But with all that being said, I'm not reliant on either of those guys. Even though Keenum's looked pretty good so far, he was the quarterback 11 heading into last week. Definitely not expecting Dwayne Haskins to do anything. Neither of these guys have really looked at Vernon Davis since week 1, so I'm going to go ahead and skip on him moving forward, no matter how appealing the matchup is. One of my predictions last week was that Greg Olsen would have a tough matchup against the Houston Texans, and it ended up coming true. He was one of the sits that I had that actually ended up hitting. But this week, we are back to putting Greg Olsen in our lineup. Jacksonville giving up more than 12 points per game to opposing tight ends right now. Greg Olsen is still a top target on that team. Kyle Allen will probably have a little bit better week this week. Last week was tough for him. could end up being better this week. We'll wait and see, but Greg Olsen should be a guy that he is honing in on a lot to begin the game. And then on the flip side, O'Shaughnessy, we're not going to go ahead and go anywhere with him. He did have a touchdown last week, but he doesn't have nearly enough volume to be considered as a weekly starter. Well, I just mentioned that Greg Olsen had a tough matchup last week against Houston, and this week Houston gets another top tight end option, and Austin Hooper. My oh my, Austin Hooper, you are balling out so far this year. Those fantasy owners that decided to invest in him and put away all of the regression talk that we heard have truly been invested in a guy that has been a top target on a team that has a lot of targets. So, Austin Hooper, you continue to put out there. Maybe this week I temper expectations a little bit, but I am going to list him as a start because he has been playing so well. I just can't sit him, especially after 130 receiving yards last week. Definitely going to go ahead and throw him out there again. Now over in Houston, Fells, Atkins, we're going to go ahead and stay away from both of these guys this week. I know that they scored touchdowns a couple of weeks ago. Went kind of back down to earth this past week. Didn't do much in week 4. Going to be a lot of the same here in week 5. The Chargers just keep getting bitten by the injury bug at tight end, whether it's Hunter Henry or Virgil Green. Doesn't really matter who it is playing this week. We're going to go ahead and sit them because the tight end position just is not being used for LA this year. Go ahead and stay away from it. Noah Fant, we're going to go ahead and look at streaming him again this week. We've talked about him as a streamer once before this year, and even though he hasn't looked great so far, another matchup that could potentially help him out. Los Angeles is giving up over 13 points per game to opposing tight ends right now, and he was able to find the end zone last week. So we'll see what happens this week, but it could be another case of him finding the end zone, and that will be just enough for him to return value in your starting lineup. It doesn't matter what I tell you to do with Jimmy Graham. He's going to do the opposite. So maybe you should go ahead and sit him this week. In week 1, he was listed as a sit. He was a start. In week 2 and 3, he was listed as a start. He was a sit. Last week, listed as a sit again. He was a start. We'll see what happens. I do have him listed as a start here, but he's been wildly inconsistent. He went 3 receptions on 5 targets, 30 yards, 1 touchdown to begin the year. Then after that, the next 2 games, 1 target each, no receptions, no yards. Then last week, he comes back, finds the end zone again, 6 receptions on 9 targets and 61 yards. After a performance like that, and in a game situation against Dallas where there's likely going to be a lot of points up on the board in this matchup, I'm going to have to put him back out there this week. I don't love it. He's been really inconsistent, but the opportunity is there. We're not going to list him as a sit again. Jason Witten, I am going to list him as a sit this week along with teammate Blake Jarwin. Green Bay is giving up less than 10 points per game to opposing tight ends right now. Yes, they did give up a decent game to Zach Ertz last week, and they really haven't played a ton at the tight end position yet this year. But with that being said, this is still a tough matchup for them. I'm going to go ahead and sit both of these guys this week, and we're going to focus in on other positions instead. All right, in this matchup, Indianapolis at Kansas City, a rematch of a playoff game last year. I'm going to go ahead and start all 3 of these tight ends. Now, Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle, I just want to make a note with these 2 guys. Now, with Eric Ebron, he's going to be a start this week for me no matter what. Kansas City right now is giving up the 4th most points to opposing tight ends, over 16 points per game. Jack Doyle is a start for me as of right now. If T.Y. Hilton is able to get into this game, then I'm going to move Doyle over to the sit column. But we're locking it in right now. So I'm locking in a start right now. So no matter what happens, that will be reflected in next week's accuracy rankings. But I'm just letting you know in advance that if Hilton starts, I am not going to go with Doyle this week. I would not recommend him. On the flip side, Kansas City, the Colts are giving up the 3rd most points to opposing tight ends right now, over 18 points per game, fantasy points per game. So a lot of opportunities here for these tight ends. And again, if Hilton sits this week, Doyle's going to be a start for me. Ebron and Kelsey are a start no matter what. Monday Night Football, the Browns at the 49ers. This should be a really good game. I'm really excited to watch this one. Ricky Seals-Jones, I want to list him as a star. If you watch the waiver wire episode, you already know how I feel about Ricky Seals-Jones. A guy that I really like, a guy that I think can be a good NFL player if he's in the right situation. But even after that terrific game last week, I got to see it more times than not. So I'm not going to go ahead and put him into my lineup as of yet. Now, if he were to continue to perform, then at that point, we need to seriously consider putting him in as a start every single week. But for right now, he's going to be a sit. On the flip side, George Kittle still leads his team in receptions and targets, receiving yards. He's still basically the number one option there for Jimmy Garoppolo. You're going to continue to put him in the lineup. I think bigger games are ahead. Maybe one happens this week, Monday Night Football, in the spotlight. It would be a great return to his performance from last season for him to come out and break out for 2019 in this game. Continue to put him in your lineup. He's going to put up points, people. All right, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. All of our tight ends start and sit for week 5 of the fantasy football season. We're going to get that 60% back up. We're going to get higher this week. I can feel it. The accuracy rankings have been really good. The start and sits, we're a little bit low the last couple weeks, but we're going to get back up there. Don't you worry. I'm feeling confident this week. I'm feeling good about some of these matchups. Hopefully you are as well. Don't forget, though, if you are new to Headliner Nation, you have not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button for us. We'd really appreciate that. Become a part of Headliner Nation today, one of the best communities for fantasy football that you're going to find on the internet. Also, hit that notification bell so when we go live or we drop a new video, you're one of the first ones to check it out. Also, hit the like button on the video if you appreciated the content. And as always, feel free to leave us a comment in the comment section below. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Fantasy Headliners. I'll catch everyone on the next episode. Good luck. See you later.